Okay, so this is this season's tier list for RTA, and I have listed almost everything that is, I think, are currently being played the most, in order of left being the strongest to the weakest on the right. And it's only not applicable in the situational category. It's only for between S2B. So starting off with Salome, he is flexible, yes, in many ways. She can just become any unit she wants. She cycles everyone's S3 really fast. It only takes 2 turns. And, because of that, she is considered the most strongest unit in the game right now. And second strongest would be Ruel. As many times Margate has tried to make the meta slightly faster, Ruel still seems to be the strong pick to most of everyone's draft. Despite all the power creep, Ruel is considered a very solid pick for many situations. Lady with skills, also considered to be one of the strongest unit in the game. Actually, also has the highest win rate on release and until now, besides Salome. And then following up to RNL, also same thing, also has a high win rate, but not as strong as the other units. But what you pair with the unit matters more than actually just the strength of his own unit. RNL is solid, but the draft matters more when you're playing RNL. And Notos, very strong unit to pick early. Also, forces your opponent to draft in a very weird way, and that is just not very good because most people will just end up banning him anyways. But you can force a very weird draft, and you'll usually be on the advantage. Rinak, still a solid DPS, and most people use her to raise RNL, and it's still a decent pick, but not prioritized as much. Biblis, I would actually rate her higher than Rinak, but they are around the same. But Biblis is still a really strong unit. Also forces people to limit their DPS options. So you are not really encouraged to pick Firen when you're playing against a Biblis, because she's just gonna kill herself from reflect damage, and Biblis also kind of matches a lot of aggro tempos. So very solid unit to have as a aggro player and as a turn 2 player. Very solid. Ludwig is a DPS that is really strong in this season because of how easy, I mean, how strong he is as a DPS option compared to other units. But he's not always picked. But when he needs to get picked, he does his job really well, which is to do damage. And usually people pick Ludwig when you're Zeo cleaving or playing aggro, or when no one, I mean, you won't get aggroed on playing Ludwig. So solid pick. Works against Setsuka too, and does damage even through misses. So you can pick him, but not always, not every game. Yes, it's also very situational. Arunka, very strong unit. You always pick her regardless of whatever. Usually you pair her with Salome or Noha and Arya. Very common draft that you could play her with. But she's not as strong as the other units, but drafts with her synergize usually really well. So that's why she's still considered a solid unit. Riren, also a good DPS. As long as you're not fighting into Biblis, or if you have skills, I guess you can use her with skills, but honestly, works really well as long as there's no Biblis. Also, there's no like other units that counter or when you're getting cleaved. Tori also does her job really well, which is to do damage and one shot, and also immune to debuffs and harmful effects. So she's just solid. She works when you want her to work until you don't proc her passive, and that's unlucky. Actually, Dian should be rated higher because of um how strong she is for both sides when you're picking it as aggro and anti-aggro, because enemies the opponent is forced to not soul burn sometimes when you have Dian in your team. So it makes getting aggro really hard and makes aggro slightly easier. Celine solid DPS. Um, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what she does. But the build usually people are running now is the full damage build. Austel also really solid pick in certain rules. Also good defensive unit actually in some cases. RB is solid DPS. People usually pick him in 1 and 2 as a damage dealer because of how strong he is. But not he doesn't work all the time. He does work, and also you need summer photogenic on RB, and not many people have multiple copies. Plan is a good opener and good follow up too. And that's not much to explain. She's just a debuff. She strips, she pushes back, she pushes the whole team. Sigrid also a very good opener. Very situational. You don't always pick her. You only pick her when you want to stop units from countering or rocking their passive, and she does that job fine. Arya is a very solid DPS in specific warfare such as ER. She does her job and makes aggroing into Arya slightly hard too, especially when you have the most common opening when playing Arya, which is Arunka Noha. And Noha is just placed right next to her because she's usually really good with Arya. Besides that, Yoha really is dependent on the draft. You don't really see her get picked besides to deny someone picking Arya. Yeah. And then Belian is a good solid not really solid, but he's quite decent at anti-aggro. So Soul Denial is kind of relevant now since people are still playing Zio. Pidom, good when they have RNL. Sometimes you don't want her to press her S2 and defense break. So Pidom is decent, but also situational. So you don't really get to see her often unless you fight against RNL. Satsuka is, I say, not the best, but usually she still wins the games if she dodges too many times and procs Little Whisper. So this unit can win a game randomly if she wants to, or lose you the game because she just doesn't want to counter or just get hit. So it's a 50-50 unit. That's why she's in the middle of the tier list. But she's not that bad compared to some other units. Zio also is quite hard to play if you're at a high level because people already know how to deal with Zio. And yeah, smarter players really know how to deal with aggro. Umir also is around the same level. Um, you you have to draft her also in a very weird way, and I'm not sure right now how people are playing her, but I'm only seeing her in aggro, and seeing how her skill works. Your 4 other units needs to be really good for her to also be good, because you are running on a timer if you play her. Christy, she does her job really well. Actually, this is a good unit also to have in a lot of the cases where you have to pick Arya or Valiant to soul deny, and then you have to play to resist debuffs. Usually people try to Briar Cleave you, and you can pick Christy to counter her. Also, other units such as Sigrid, Nebria, Briar, not as good as she was. I think she's not bad, but she's also really hard to play. It's very aggro dependent. I think she can be rated higher if you know how to play her well. Yeah. And then Hakate, situational character, usually isn't aggro, but I've seen people play her on non-aggro games also, where she's full tank. I think most people use Hakate for that reason, as a full tank unit and immortal denier. Maybe usually against Celine on a slow matchup like Harsedi, you would see her kit value. Bellona is solid DPS. Not really much to say about her. She injures, so she's deals with a lot of units that by injuring them, and then she has her own vision and also can deal with Ras. But Ras is not really an issue this season. Iseria also kind of does the same thing, but she has damage pen mitigation, so she can be used against people that want to pick Strays or Hurkit. And you don't really see her that often. Teiyu, you only see him when people pick Zio, and I don't really need to say anything. Polly is less picked nowadays because she's not as strong as it used to be. I think she's a good 4-5 unit for Zio, anti-Zio. And she's usually force banned anyways. Luna, same thing. Kind of force banned in 4-5. Lyrica is... I'm not sure how people play her, but the amount of games I see people play Lyrica is lessened nowadays. Maybe she becomes stronger there this season because the meta kind of shifts usually in the middle of the last 2 days. I mean, around the last 2 days of RTA. Harsedi is a good... I say good because it's RNG reliant on whoever moves first, or if she lands a stun on the openness you want her to land stun on. Very RNG unit, I'd say. But usually people build her with Fairy Tail or Abyssal Crown. I think the build that you should be going on Harsedi nowadays, because you're only gonna pick her when you're fighting people who pick 4 opponents at the start of their draft. You are just gonna pick Abyssal Crown and Weakening. And I don't know. She works sometimes. Olivia, I think she has fallen off slightly also because of how how units nowadays can survive. I mean, I could rate her higher actually. She's probably better than Harsedi because you can actually pick her in certain drafts. Still not as good as she used to be. I mean, she's only good if you land her debuffs, but units nowadays can survive through her debuffs. Hua Yang is situational. I didn't put her situational because I should probably do that. Yeah, never mind. It doesn't really matter what she is. She's not that good. Amit, Brigida, same thing, same unit, same concept. That's not as good as she used to be. Pera also, Landy is not a reliable DPS, but she can work sometimes. Glenn is not a really good reach option nowadays. Ras is kind of fallen off a lot because of the power creep of other units. Holy is a decent imprint pick. I mean, you're not going to pick her, but you're going to probably use her to raise. And then situational units are units that you are going to pick 4-5, usually to counter certain drafts. Young Senya is if you have a green unit on third, so you can proc her guaranteed. But I think she's only good against cleavers. Other than that, she's like whatever. Ivana also, it's usually against Lady of the Scales. It can work. Usually gets post ban depending on draft. Sharon is good against it's only good if you're playing Renat into Bidom and you want to proc. And also they have a unit that fears you, like Lady of the Scales or Sigrid. So like you always have tempo when you pick this unit. What is just a mitigation knight used nowadays when you play Renat when you play a RNL or any of the other DPS to counter Setsuka and Iseria. She works fine, but I think someone probably has figured out a way around the mod draft. Achilles is very situational when you wanna when you wanna anti-aggro Zio. I think it's only applicable when there's Valiant on tree or Aria on tree. so that he can't soul burn into Achilles. Bit also kind of does the same thing, but not for Zero, but for like debuff, Beef, or like Briar. But usually when she gets picked, I don't really see her get into the game. She's just gonna get banned because they're probably drafting debuff the heavy, and then enough. I think she just has to be 4-5. You can't even pick her early anymore. Only to counter people that pick strays, but no one's really doing that nowadays. And that is it for this season of RTA. Okay, that is it for this season's tier list of RTA. Don't take my opinions as the right thing. Don't take my opinions like all the way. Like you think that my opinion is right all the way. Everything is with a grain of salt. Everyone has their own bias to what is good and what is not. So I suggest you look through other people's tier list to understand, not to understand, but like get a better picture on how this season's meta is like. And that is it. Thanks for watching.